Most sew-ins don't damage hair on purpose. They damage hair because people don't understand tension, prep, and removal. And today, I want to explain this in a simple way so you can protect your hair. Hi everyone, my name is Ifeyinwa I am a hairstylist turned beauty mentor, and I've been in the beauty industry for over 9 years, and I'm here to bring you honest hair education. Welcome to my channel. We know sew-ins as protective styles, right? But people assume just because it's a protective style, that means it's always going to be safe, and that is not true. Protection depends on how it's done. A sew-in is only protective if the scalp and the hair are respected. A lot of people think that because I'm getting a sew-in, my hair is gonna grow underneath, I'm gonna be good. But sorry to break it to you, but that's not always the case, because ultimately, how your hair will turn out is dependent on how it's done by the stylist. And here's how damage actually happens. So one, too much tension. It could be from tight braids, pulling of the hair for neatness, and pain does not equal good work. Your hair and your scalp should not be in pain at all with a sew-in. You should not be taking medication for a sew-in, because that's crazy. And if that's the case, that means your braids are usually too tight. The foundation is way too tight for your scalp. And a lot of stylists tend to think that the tighter the braid, the longer the sew-in will last. And quite frankly, that's actually contradicting, because if the braids are too tight, that means the client is going to want to take out the sew-in quicker just because of how painful it is. And then two is poor prep. You have dirty scalp, dry hair, or if there's no moisture before the install. So these three things are very important, because if you're not preparing your hair well before sewing, you're going to reap the effects of that. So your hair might be too itchy, your scalp is flaking, it's too dry, it's uncomfortable, and you literally can feel it, especially having a sew-in on top of that, and there's no good prep. 3 is a bad takedown. You could be rushing, or you're cutting too close to your hair, and you just don't have patience overall. These can add to the damage you can get from a sew-in. And when it comes to the takedown, you always want to make sure you're using detangling spray to make sure that your hair has some sort of moisture to it, and you're not detangling your hair dry, because doing it dry will lead to more breakage. And you just want to be patient, or at least pay someone to do it for you, to take it down, or have someone that you trust take down your sew-in, because usually when you try to take down your own installs, you might run the risk of cutting your own hair or just not properly taking it down. If you've had damage before, it doesn't mean sew-ins aren't for you. It just means they weren't done correctly. Outside of that, these are some signs that your sew-in is not healthy. Some of these signs are pain after a few days, itching doesn't stop, hairline soreness, breakage at takedown, and fear of removing the style. You shouldn't be scared to take your hair out. When it comes to pain from a sew-in, sew-ins are not meant to be painful, and there's definitely been a stigma for years that the tighter the sew-in is, the better, but no, that's not true, and your hair should not be in pain at all. With sew-ins, you'll feel it on your head, but not to a point where it's paining you. When it gets to that point where you're feeling uncomfortable and you feel like you have to take Tylenol to lessen the pain, that's a serious issue. And when it comes to itching, if your hair and scalp are properly moisturized prior to applying or installing your sew-in, you shouldn't be experiencing itching. However, let's say your stylist does moisturize your hair before putting the sew-in in, but you're also not moisturizing your hair over time with the sew-in in, you're going to experience itchiness, because your hair and scalp is dry over time, and you still need to be applying that moisture in between your tracks. And with that, your hairline should not be sore. If so, it's too much pulling going on. Your hair should not be breaking at takedown, and if it's breaking when you're taking on your sew-in, that means your hair is very dry, and you also need to add moisture to it, or there was never any moisture in it. And you should not be scared overall of removing your hairstyle, because you're scared of seeing what's underneath. So those were the signs that your sew-in is not healthy. Let's talk about what a healthy sew-in should feel like. A healthy sew-in should feel secure but comfortable. Your scalp will be calm, you don't have any headaches, and your hair feels good or better after removal. And going back to what I said about how your sew-in should feel, it should feel secure. Like, it shouldn't feel like you're gonna feel a sewing because it's something being sewn onto your head, but it should not feel pulling. You should not feel like you're having concussions on your head because of the sewing. A sewing should really feel comfortable. Like, you're gonna feel it, but it shouldn't be painful. And your scalp should be calm. Like, there's no irritation, there's no itchiness, there's no redness or like, uncomfortability. And you should not be having any headaches. Having a headache is a serious issue because that just indicates that it's way too tight and your scalp is literally screaming for help. And after removal, your hair should not feel super dry, feel like it's all coming out, or just feel damaged overall. That either means that you kept your sewn in for too long, or there was just no scalp or hair care prior to the sewing install or just during. And this is why I'm very intentional about how I teach sew-ins. Whether you're a client or a hairstylist, education matters. And if you want to learn more about healthy installs, I'll link helpful resources below. Like, comment, subscribe, and let me know if you guys want more honest hair educational videos.